So we just finished watching the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. Is it called the movie, or is it just...
It's Angry Video Game Nerd, the movie. The game.
Yeah, okay.
The movie, the
Peter
game.
Jackson, so...
So, anyway. I feel really, really bad saying that I didn't like this movie that much.
I do,
There
too.
were parts of it that were funny. I did enjoy...
There was one part I legitimately laughed really hard, and it had nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah.
Like, there was one part.
So let's just kind of start from the beginning here.
It's almost hard to remember what even happened.
Well, no, I mean, I can remember what happened, but before I even go into that, I do want to first of all say that, like, I was watching the progress of this movie for a while, because I know that James has always really wanted to actually make a legitimate movie.
Right.
Because he's always made a bunch of homemade stuff, and has just always wanted to get into that.
I know you
And
were...
so I, like, really wanted this movie to be good, because...
They worked really hard on it.
Yeah, and
they legitimately worked hard on it, judging from postings and...
Like, when it came out, and I wasn't at any of the events that screened it or anything, and I haven't watched any reviews on it. I know the Nostalgia Critic did one, and I kind of want to watch that after this, just to see what he says.
We went in completely blind. We read no reviews. All we watched was the trailer, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the trailer, and I've seen, like, the pre-release stuff. But, anyway, it kind of suffers from the general AVGN style of where it's like, there are parts of it that are funny, and then there's just parts that make no sense at all. Like, a lot of his reviews kind of have that.
The writing was not good, I think. Like, the story felt very chopped to pieces. Like, that's the feeling that I got from it when I was watching it. I'm like, okay, what new scene are we going into now? There wasn't a really good flow from, like, my point of view. Like, I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know. I mean...
Well, I don't know, but, so let's kind of just set this thing up. It's, basically we have the nerd, who is just called the nerd in the movie. He doesn't actually have a name. And then his random friend slash manager slash token black guy.
Token black guy.
Like,
it kind of looked like it, didn't it?
I really don't know what his purpose was, other than to be just kind of...
His name was Cooper.
Excitable.
At least I remember his name. So yeah, like, that was his friend. It doesn't actually start out with them, though. It starts out with basically kind of a really brief history on E.T. and the landfill, and how this company called Cockburn, lol,
frickin' Cockburn,
so funny, is producing E.T. 2, which,
yeah, they're making this game intentionally bad because
that's what
the
gamers...
AVGN has gotten a bunch of gamers into the whole idea of playing bad games on
And that
purpose.
was legitimately funny, because we do that.
Yeah,
we play bad games. Because
it had a good premise. I'll give it that much.
It does.
Like, the movie in general had a good premise.
Right, and there were a couple things that were legitimately good, like the idea of it.
Like, and that's another thing, is going into this, obviously I knew it was an E.T. movie, because it's the review that he's always been pestered to do, and if you're gonna make a movie out of a review, it makes sense to do one that has such a legacy behind it.
Right.
And then there's the whole thing with them actually finding the cartridges after the filming of the movie, but that's just a weird coincidence.
It was almost unfortunate that happened, though, because, there were a few things in hindsight that didn't quite, obviously... I mean, he didn't intend for this to be truth, though. So that's one thing that has going for it.
So, anyway, the thing with the opening is, it goes to this really big...
The music is awesome. I have to give the soundtrack credit. The soundtrack was really good. So.
Okay. The movie kind of starts out on this big, like, maybe a montage of just tons of fans asking him to review this game.
Yeah.
And it kind of starts with this kind of big ego trip thing, and I don't think he intended it that way.
Yeah,
but
I thought the same thing watching it.
It's like...
He walks into, like, a bar, I guess, which is really odd because I didn't think of nerds doing that in general, socializing with people. because we don't socialize with people, therefore nobody else does. But
well, that's the thing, he doesn't either. Like,
right.
he was kind of forced to
But
go
like,
there.
he walks in and starts like signing this autograph, and of course,
I think it was supposed to be over the top on purpose. But
they got this woman to like go up, and she's like, "Oh, can you sign my boob?" And I'm like, "The hell." She wasn't even that hot. She looked 40. So
it's like, I feel like as a standalone movie, nobody's gonna watch this movie not knowing who the AVGN is. But it is kind of important to set him up as like this character with a big fan base in order for the movie to make sense. True. So that's why they had to do that, probably.
I didn't even think about it setting up the character, to be honest, because I already know the character.
And it's like, that's actually another thing I just thought of. They didn't show any real game footage in the entire game, in the entire movie. They got like these facsimiles.
Somebody programmed, I guess.
It's like they made a not quite Top Gun and like a not quite Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. Like I'm not sure what the copyright issues were on this, because like there was like a scene where you can see like Pikachu and a Goomba in the background.
Right, and you can see like real games in the background.
But they won't show actual game footage, and throughout the entire movie, E.T. is spelled differently, so that I guess they don't get, like, they're technically not, like, infringing upon the actual rights of E.T.
The only thing I can think of is the reason they had to do that is because
of Spielberg.
Because of Spielberg.
Yeah,
E.T. is still existing, so that makes sense. And otherwise they'd have to pay probably just exuberant fees. But if they produce it like a parody, then that makes more sense. So I give them that, at least. If they can't do the rights, then that's fine.
So anyway, I mean,
money on the movie.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, if we're going to be summarizing the plot, which honestly isn't really necessary, but we'll go through it anyway.
Right.
There's this girl, I think her name was Mandy, who works for the Cockburn, and is basically it's a stupid enough name for it to be somewhat funny, actually. But anyway, she's basically just trying to like she pretends to be a nerd to like get him to play this game, and like sponsors this hunt to go out to New Mexico to find this site because he doesn't want to review the game, and he wants to kind of go out there and like find proof that it isn't buried to kind of like shut everybody up. And then it leads into this whole weird government conspiracy thing, which it kind of it escalates really freaking quickly.
Right.
But before we get to that, there's the scene where Cooper, I never remember his freaking name.
Black guy,
yeah, he just kind of goes off on this tangent about this big giant robot with a satellite dish on its head that like lives on like. It was the weirdest freaking scene, and then
so
something about a bologna sandwich.
Yeah, it was so out of place. They were
and then it just ends.
Yeah, they were standing in the desert, and all of a sudden he brings up this mythological being that supposedly created heaven and hell and what? And they start talking about, oh, the Earth is actually flat, and the world is actually on a conveyor belt. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, it was the most random scene ever.
It was so out of place.
It does come up later, but it was still introduced very badly.
Out of place. Like, even after it comes up later, which I assumed something would have had to come up later if they put that scene in there. But
just like the 2-second scene. Hey, did you know the Atari logo is based on Mount Fuji?
Yeah.
Immediately goes back to what they were doing.
What did you run out of space to put this somewhere else? Like, it just okay, we'll just shove it in this scene. You know, like it just didn't make any sense. And
so it was kind of weird.
Yeah, that was a really weird one.
So anyway, I'm not going to try to sum up the whole government thing because it's really long-winded, and if you want to see the movie, then I'm going to see the movie. But they find this guy that worked for Area 51 and has this weird video game trap inside his house.
It was so funny. They were like going up to this house, and this music starts playing. And I'm like, that's a really kind of, like, out-of-place music. It sounds like they're going into a temple or something. And then they just end up in this house and start going through a video game
There's just a big lava pool in front of them, and so. Then there was just this extended scene of them talking inside a fridge. Yeah, it's Ooh, and there was a, it sounds like they're having sex, but they're actually not scene.
Yeah.
Honestly, as predictable as it was, it actually did work well, I think.
I guess it worked well, but you can make anything work well and sound like a sex scene. Like, I don't know.
It's it was low-hanging fruit.
Everything does it, though.
It was very low-hanging fruit, but I feel like, as lame as a joke as it was, it actually was kind of funny, surprisingly.
I guess. But everybody does it. I don't know.
I know. I don't know.
There were a few visual gags I feel that didn't go over very well. Like, there was a car chase, and two guys just start walking across the street with this plate of glass.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, the car chasing them, you think is going to crash through the glass.
And then it just hits the glass and explodes.
I'm like...
It was kind of odd.
Okay. And it wasn't funny. It was just
the
subverting
freaking general... with his random blowing off his arm.
Yeah.
And then getting his other arm cut off by the door. It was completely unnecessary.
Funny. I don't know. Like, I felt like the jokes fell really flat.
They kind of did.
Except for one. And it wasn't, I don't even think it was meant to be that funny. It's just the guy who did this joke was so funny to me. Like, it was the only time I legitimately laughed, I think, in the entire movie. And then the store owner. Oh, yeah. The beginning of the movie starts out with this store owner that they work at, and you're just beat over the head with this guy.
Ridiculously vulgar store owner.
Super hamming it up. Awesome. He was kind of an awesome character,
I liked how over the top he was.
Yeah, he was very over the top. So I think I'm probably going to go into, like, a more in-depth review eventually over this movie, because it kind of bugs me that it's, I don't know, I think it just suffers from writing issues.
It really does.
And I think that's the main part. It's
here's the thing, and, again, it pains me incredibly to say this, but I honestly think that, like, To Boldly Flee was a better movie than this.
Did I watch that one?
You never did.
Yeah, I didn't watch that.
And that was a movie that was shot in, like, a week.
Yeah.
I guess and it's also weird because that movie had to basically get, like, 25 different reviewers into a single movie and give them all a part.
Yeah.
And somehow I feel like it came out better. It didn't have as much of a storyline, but it also wasn't as...
Now, I didn't see who actually worked on the writing on this. Was it just...
I assume it was James.
Was it just James? Or... I'd have to look. But...
The movie didn't have that many, like, poop and balls jokes. Like, it had a few, because that's, like, it's the AVGN staple. But because of the fact that it didn't, I'm going to assume that Mike did not write for this movie.
Oh, Lord. His last name is Matei, right?
Either Matei or Matei.
He did, like, sound syncing. I saw in credits or something like that. But... There
was also a random, like, special thanks to Justin Carmichael, which was weird.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's the main issue of the movie, is the writing. Some of the jokes really fell flat. It could have gone through another polish, I feel.
There were, again, it's a low-budget movie, but some of the effects were kind of painful.
Well, I can't really bash on the movie for effects, because I don't know what he was going for. I really don't know. And that's, I think, another thing that suffers from the movie. I don't know what to classify it as. It's not...
I mean, there's parts of it that are clearly a parody, like the part where
the robots.
Well, the cardboard robots, and then also just the scene where they drive through the cardboard boxes and the fruit and the plate glass. Yeah. Like, obviously, it's a reference to other
But then there was, like, other things where they're in the car and they're screening the background.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't
that wasn't so bad.
No, it wasn't so bad. It just, like, I don't know... See, I'm so conflicted because I don't know what to classify the movie as. It's clearly meant to be a comedy, but it's also low budget comedy, but it's also, like, adventure and stuff. So the writing, I felt like, didn't quite know what it wanted to do, and the effects seemed really unnecessary for some things. Like, why did the fence have to be...
The people beating on the fence while it's sparked.
Yeah, why did
it's like one guy jumps into the fence and gets electrocuted and dies.
Right.
And then later on you have this huge crowd of people beating against this fence and they're okay.
And there's sparks and stuff flying, but why did the fence have to be electrocuted? The fence was obviously keeping them back, and obviously the electricity didn't affect them. So why did the fence have to be electrocuted?
Well, because if it was just a normal fence, they'd be able to, like, get past it really easily.
But they didn't flinch or anything.
Yeah, that was the dumb part.
And that was the weird part. Like, why spend all your effort electrifying this fence when it does nothing to the story?
Also photoshopping the fence.
What?
That was from the pre-release stuff. They didn't have enough fence to actually fit the screen, so they had to copy-paste it.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny.
But,
going back to just parodies of, like, cliches from movies, there was also the unnecessary cat fight. However, it's like...
It was incredibly unnecessary.
It was unnecessary, but it wasn't over the top, I guess. It didn't become overly sexual.
It didn't become overly sexual,
like,
but
it didn't need to be there.
It still wasn't needed because they kept cutting back to it, and it did nothing for the story.
Yeah,
nothing.
It's like there's the scene where the commander or whatever her name was. I think her name was like
McButter or something. Yeah.
She just like does a bunch of backflips while the other girl stands in the background and does nothing. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, like I can understand that if your scene is needed, but the scene entirely wasn't needed. Like the whole cat fight in general, they were stuck on this Eiffel Tower for forever fighting, and like they're stuck on it off screen forever.
Yeah.
And you know that they're there and they're not doing anything. They have her tied up and she's like, "Oh, let me go."
Oh yeah.
And she lets her go and then they have a cat fight. They're like, "What?" Okay.
And then there's the part where she falls off the tower into the fountain.
Oh, that looked like shit.
And it really did.
That was probably the worst effect I think of the whole movie.
I want to watch that again because I feel like it should have been a reference to the guy randomly imploding before he hits the water from Ninja Turtles 3. And if it wasn't, then it definitely should have been.
It did look kind of bad though.
That would have been perfect if they actually did that. It would have been hilarious because it was the most unnecessary effect in that movie.
Yeah.
And then they could have brought that back. And it's like,
Maybe
the movie had...
I could have missed some stuff.
I didn't see her implode, though, so I think she just disappeared.
Yeah, it was really odd.
It's like...
There's a lot of odd
It's like there were in-jokes in the movie, because, like, I saw in the background in one scene, a guy was holding up, I don't even remember what the sign said, but it was a reference to the ending of Ghostbusters with proved spelled wrong. And I'm like, that's a kind of a neat
I saw that,
callback.
but I wasn't sure what it was referencing, so I didn't ask about it.
Yeah, it's like there was that. I mean, there was a lot of shit pickle in the movie for whatever reason. I don't know. I kind of like shit pickle though. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, there was like it was. I'd say it was worth watching, but it wasn't necessarily good.
I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't own it. I would not buy it.
I wish I could freaking see his commentary for it, but I wouldn't want to get the DVD.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of left kind of like, eh. It's just a generic. Like I hate to say generic, but it wasn't
generic.
It was just generic.
It suffered from writing issues.
It was really bad on the writing, and I feel like that could have been polished a heck of a lot better. Like, because I really don't think it knew what it wanted to be.
I think part of the problem was he had been sitting on this script for like 5 years, and then probably just didn't really change it.
That's probably what happened. That's what it kind of feels like. It feels like
because I know that's what happened. He had the script since like the first year or two of AVGN being a thing, and then was never able to.
Too, right? So, I mean, how old was he?
Well, I mean, he was still out of college and everything. Okay. So, I mean, I mean, he wasn't young, but I mean, look at the stuff that he and Mike find funny. I mean, they're immature as hell.
That's true.
But it's the situation. It's like if I was going to make like a script for a Bargo the Bic-Dit movie back when I thought that was still the greatest story ever, and then I go back to it later, and I'm like, I'm gonna make this thing, and then I don't actually change it.
Yeah.
And then it's like somebody else watches this, and they're like, okay, this kind of sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel bad saying it kind of sucks, but the script really could have been better. Like, it just felt kind of like they were doing this one idea, and that's all that they had, so they had to pad the hell out of it. Like, that's what it kind of felt like. Like, and, the idea, while good, did not a movie make.
And it's like, in the credits, he actually does review the original E.T. game, and it just made me feel like, why couldn't he have just done that and not made the movie?
Yeah. like, can you just do the review? And, yeah, like, at that point, I would tell people, skip to the end of the movie and watch the review. Like, that's probably what I would tell people, and that's what I am telling people. Like, if you like AVGN, see the movie.
Then you'll want to watch.
Then you'll want to watch the movie.
If you don't, then you're not going to see the movie anyway.
Yeah, if you don't,
point?
But the issue comes with, if you want to see a good movie, this is not it.
Yeah, and then it's also the thing with, like, when I saw this movie was first released, and I looked down in the comments, there were tons of people giving this 5 stars, and
they
hadn't even downloaded it yet. And it's like, I saw a few reviews that gave it like 2 or 3, and they're like, oh.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, okay.
I wanted to give it an honest review, because, like, I like AVGN, but I don't worship him, shall we say.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm not biased on it. And I know you're not either, just judging by your reaction either. So it's like...
Yeah, and it's just, again, I feel really bad. I hope that, like...
We're gonna get
he's
murdered.
Able to learn from his mistakes,
yeah,
and produce a better movie. Because I do want the guy to actually succeed.
Yeah, I want him to succeed, but I also want people to give honest reviews on the movie. I would love to see what the screeners thought.
And another thing is, he's also kind of being held back by this character because, like, it was never intended to be this huge ongoing thing. It only kept going because people liked it so much, and, like. I mean,
like what happened with Nostalgia Critic.
Like, he's talked about this before, is, like, the only reason he always puts the, like, buffalo diarrhea bullshit, stupid kind of
they're so dumb.
Ramblings into his videos is because it always does get a reaction out of people.
But and why?
Like, I don't know.
I don't understand that either.
I don't understand that either.
I stop the video whenever it starts getting to crap like that, because I just don't want to hear it, you know? But...
So it's like, he's kind of just doing this because he knows that it works, and it made a movie that he knew people would see, even if it wasn't necessarily good.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I feel like.
It's an odd place.
It really is.
So I would suggest renting it, but not necessarily buying it, because I don't know if it's worth a rewatch. And that's my thought on it.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much done with this.
We're gonna get murdered in the comments. Like, how dare you?
We're probably not gonna get murdered in the comments. I know that. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of people that agree with this. Yeah. I just feel bad.
I feel bad too, because I wanted to enjoy the movie. I wanted to go in and have this really awesome
And again,
movie.
I didn't even hate it either. It's just there were a lot of parts that were kind of cringeworthy.
The writing, ugh. Yeah, that's the issue, is the writing. But anyway, see it or don't. That is our thoughts on it. Goodbye.
Shit pickle.
Really?